Thanks, our Cap Jupiter again, and I am here to talk to you today about passive income. And this is really my most exciting video. I've been wanting to make this for a long time, and I'm really excited to share all this information with you guys because every time I share this with someone, people are completely blown away. And I think it's really valuable information, especially if you want extra income coming in without having to do a lot, or having to do, or having money in your bank every month for the rest of your life and your children's life. The word passive income is spread around a lot in different capacities, and I want to just define it by the Investopedia here, which is what I believe it to be, is earnings from rental property, limited partnership, or other enterprises which you are not actively involved. And that could be a business that you're just like a silent partner and you're funding money, and that takes a lot of capital. But rental property actually takes fairly little. It does take capital to begin, and it does take capital and savings. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a long-term life strategy so that you can retire in a couple of years, potentially, and you can stop working completely and live off of your income from rental properties. But it does take some money to start, so I'm not going to try and fool you into thinking that it's just easy and you can start right now. Although there are people out there who do talk to you about how to buy property and rehab it with zero money down, and I think that's awesome. I've researched it. I don't know a lot about it. I've never done it. It seems scary to me. I'm a very, very conservative investor, and I do very conservative things with my money, and so I don't like buying things on credit. I don't like highly leveraged things. I like to do fairly typical investments that actually are proven to bring me money, and I'll show you how I'm more conservative as we go along in this video. But I just wanted to give you that information about what I define passive income as. So when I use that term, you understand it for the future. So it's all about rental properties, and rental properties are awesome, and they exist all over the country. There are certain pockets, though, that have properties that have they're low to buy and they have decently high rents. So if you buy 1 to 4 units, excuse me, which you can do if you don't have that much money in the bank and you're just a first-time investor, much money meaning like over 100 grand. Just sitting around, and if you do, that's awesome. Congratulations. You should go party or invest something else. But this is about 1 to 4 unit properties, and because you can have 1 to 4 units, and because your income is coming from the rental units themselves, I highly recommend doing 3 and 4 unit properties. But it all depends on the numbers, and the numbers are what we're going to go through today. So I'm on this page, homestead.net, because there are several areas of the country, such as San Antonio, Kansas City, upstate New York, and a couple others that have, like I said before, low cost of housing and high rents, or decently high rents. So they even out. So I'll go into it a little bit more. So I'm on the homestead.net, which is actually the website for upstate New York. And I'm going to type in Rochester just to give you an example. That's one of the places that you can go. And so I've been on here recently, and so what I did was I clicked on multifamily, which is 1 to 4 units, and I gave a maximum price. Now I gave a maximum price of $40,000 because whenever you buy an investment property, you have to give, right now with the conditions that we're in the market, 25% down payment. So $10,000 is what you will need to start buying property in a decent range, which has rentals money coming in. Pretty much anything underneath $40,000 in at least upstate New York is a rehab and needs a lot of work, and it's very much more complex and intricate, and you need to get your contractors, you have to trust your contractors to not overcharge you, and there's all these different aspects to it, and that's a whole nother type of investing in rental properties. And I highly recommend, if you're interested in doing rehab and stuff like that and construction, looking into it, because it is actually a bigger money maker than this. But my goals when I started this was to invest some money and have money with as little effort as possible, and have money coming in every month, and I can just start immediately with a decent amount of money, and not have to worry about contractors and stuff. There are some people that you'll have to worry about, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But so now we're here, and so hopefully I haven't scared you off with $10,000. And I want to pause a minute, and if you are, $10,000 may sound like a lot, and that it may be, and that's okay. But it is something that I would really recommend just looking at and giving a chance of an idea to just have an open mind about, because saving $10,000 over the course of a year, for example, like if you had a goal to save $10,000 in order to put it down on a property, you can have several $100s in your bank from that $10,000 for the rest of your life. And it's kind of amazing when you think about your entire life. You're going to live 80, 90 years, and you're going to have to retire, and at some point, Social Security may or may not be there, or the amount of Social Security might be significantly lower than what you're used to or what you want to be at. And so depending on the government for your income is kind of scary, especially if you haven't made a lot of income in your life. You're going to have a lower amount coming in for Social Security. The other thing is that I believe, as women in particular, we have a whole range of things that the economy doesn't look at, and things like making babies and being a wife, and doing things that don't necessarily make money. And maybe that's not necessarily just women, and I apologize for the men out there listening, but there's a lot of things that we could be doing in our lives, and if we have something that is constant, that takes very little time, just like a phone call a month or two, and earns us money constantly and consistently, that's just such a huge, for me, it was a huge relief to think of that I can just relax and chill out, and I don't need to worry about what job I'm going to get, or studying for some degree that I don't even know if I'm going to get a job after that, and I don't know if I'm going to like my job after all the study time, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay off everything. We're just kind of in a messed up system, and if we can look at different ways of investing our money, or using our money to give back to ourselves, I think it's just a genius way to go. And I'm definitely not taking any credit for it. I learned from the best, or at least from the coolest people. There's a guy named Robert Kiyosaki who wrote a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I highly recommend you reading it, because it really did change my life and a lot of people's lives about how the economy works, and how doing something like earning active income per hour, it can only take you so far, and it can make you so rich, and it can only set you up for life so much. I mean, it can also exhaust you and make you miserable. And there's two big things that he talks about, which is rental property is an excellent money maker once you figure out what your standard of living is and what you can live off of, and also starting businesses, like big businesses. And since that's kind of it's a separate thing for me, the rental property seemed much more interesting. Anyway, so that's why I looked into it and researching it and doing it for over 5 years. So, okay, so back to where we were. Multifamily, 40,000. So you have $10,000, for example. So what I was talking about before was really considering just understanding that taking $10,000 and having a couple $100s in your pocket is awesome for the rest of your life, because you can just do it several years, and after those several years, you can actually have $2,000 in passive income for the rest of your life, and you never have to work again, technically, if you don't want to. You can work in certain places, live in certain places, that you can pay your rent and your food and your utility bills with that money. And it's such a huge, I think, lifesaver. It's a huge safety. It's just a wonderful feeling. Okay, so we're on the homestead.net.com, and we're in Rochester, and I've typed in before $40,000 as the maximum amount, so that we have $10,000 of down payment. And then we have 3 beds. I put in baths because it doesn't allow me to put 1 to 4 units, or like how many units. Like I said before, 3 to 4 units I think are the best, although that's not always the case depending on the numbers. But I just asked for this many baths so that I had a higher number of units, because obviously you have to have a bathroom for every unit. So there's that, and we came up with a good number of houses. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 houses. I personally know that this area is a decent area. I also know that this area is a decent area. That's another thing that you'll want to do when you get into this, is really knowing the area that you're choosing, and figuring out how to work it the best. So without further ado, let's just click on one, and this is our first house. This is the first house that you're researching to see if it's gonna fit your number scheme, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So this is where we are, and it gives you all this information. It gives you the bed, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, square foot, the acres, when year it was built, and then the list price. And that's what it looks like. It's a pretty decent looking house. There's not a lot of remarks here. Fully occupied C of O, and upstate New York C of O is an important document to have for rental properties, or it's a necessary document to have for rental properties. There's 5,000 caves, and then it goes to property specifications, and it's a multifamily. And the big thing you want to look at, I think, is the number of units. And this is a 3-unit property, which is awesome. And they have 4 bedrooms, so it's maybe like 2 1-bedrooms and 1 2-bedroom. So you know how many bedrooms there are. And so once you know how many bedrooms there are, you can go to the Craigslist ads or anything that you can find on the local rents at the time. But I think Craigslist works great. And you go to apartments housing, and I actually go, for this one in particular, I go to the street name to see if there's anything close to the street name. So Saratoga Avenue. So Saratoga, to see if there's anything in there. Usually it'll say there. So Saratoga Avenue near Smith Street. So I don't know if it's near Smith Street. I actually did look earlier to see, because obviously it was highlighted purple, but it is near Smith Street. It's about 2 blocks away. That is something that you want, but you can go to Google Maps and check it out, see how much distance there is, because if you go back to the map, it'll show you exactly where the property is, and you can scroll in. And you can see how far that is from Smith Street, and also you can check the number if you can find a property that they list with the number. This just happens to be saying near Smith. Now this one is a 3-bedroom apartment, so obviously that's not going to be the same for a 1 or 2-bedroom apartment at the same area. It does happen to be at the same area. This is 2. Oh, that's interesting. That's a 2-bedroom for $650, and that's 100. See, in the next block over, so that's $650. And that says 3-bedroom. I'm not sure why it says that, but I'm gonna guess. Oh, because uncommonly used for a 3rd bedroom, so it's like a 2-bedroom. And then there's a 1-bedroom apartment for $525. And so I would take that as a number. And since I haven't, we don't actually know how long this listing has been up. Sometimes they're listed for a really long time, and therefore that tells me that no one's renting in that area, or for whatever reason. But that's generally the number I'm going to work with. I'm probably going to go down to 500 to just be conservative, be more on the conservative side. So we'll start our process, and there's an Excel sheet that it's either below the screen there, or it will be sent to you as a in your email. And this is what your property analysis will look like. So I'll just go over this with you. This is the address. I just want to type in the address so you remember which one it is. That's actually not the right address, so I'll just take that away. So the price, you want to put in the price, plug in the price. And then down payment, actually we'll go to the numbers in a minute, but this is the total investment. This is down payment, 25%, right? So about $10,000 for $40,000. The fees, so every time you get a mortgage out, you pay quite a bit of money in fees. It can take, some people say you can negotiate it. I have a hard time negotiating. You can actually go to the bank when you have a property that you're interested in, and get something called a good faith estimate of how much the fees would be in order to buy the property or get a mortgage out on it. And some places, or like big banks like Chase or Bank of America, you need to watch out for where they're willing to do a mortgage. Sometimes they don't give a mortgage out in certain areas of the country because it's kind of a really bad neighborhood. That's another thing you want to check out for. That's another big big problem that you need to talk to your broker and the property managers in the area to find out what are the big crime areas, and places that the big banks won't lend on. But generally, for this amount of money, I just guesstimated at $3,000. And so your total investment is actually be $13,000, and that can be less if you have a lower amount, and I won't get to that in a minute. But the total income, so now that we know that there's 3 bedrooms, 3 apartments, and they're about $500. I'm just being on the conservative side. And the total income is $1,500. Because that's your total income that you're going to be getting if you buy this property. And then I'll just go ahead and go to Saratoga. So this is the Saratoga one. I didn't actually write it in. I'll write it in now. So on principal and interest, so how you find that out is you go to this great website called mortgagecalc.com, and that's right there. And you press on the simple mortgage calculator. And what you're actually getting a mortgage on is the total cost minus the down payment. So for this one, which is $30,000, right? Because this one is 118, and that's 29.9. And also, just a side note, $30,000 is the asking price, and you can also always move it lower. One thing to be aware of for something that is this low, like I said before, is any renovations that are needed. They did say that they had $5,000 in recent upgrades. That might mean that there's another $20,000 that are needed, and they did the 5 and then they got tired and bored and wanted to sell it. It's very, very possible. They don't actually say anything about it, so that's something to check out. Okay, so let's say, for example, we did buy it at $30,000 and there was no more upgrades needed in order to keep it rented. And this is all hypothetical. Is you have $30,000, and then the down payment 7.5 is 25% plus 3 is the so 30,000 minus 755 is 225. So we're gonna put in 22,500. So 30,000 minus 25%. And then because the mortgage rates are actually fairly low right now, I put in 4, which is what I've seen most recently. And you press submit for a 30-year loan, and you come to about $100 for your property and interest, your principal and interest. And so you're just going to plug in those numbers right here. It says principal and interest at 4%, and that's $100. And then the taxes you can actually get from the listing. That's not always the case, but in Rochester they do list it. Rochester in particular, or upstate New York in particular, has very high taxes because there's a lot of investors, so they just take as much money as they can from investors. So annual taxes is divided by 12 is about $200 a month. So this is all monthly. So I put $200 for taxes, and insurance is always going to be about $100. And then so total is about $400. $100 for any 3 to 4 unit generally. It can be less, maybe $50 a month for a single or potentially a duplex. So your total, what's called PITI or PITI, is $400. And so the next thing you want to be concerned with is something called a vacancy rate, which obviously you're never going to have your all 4 units or all 3 units or all units at all always going to be rented. You have that would be awesome if that happened. It's not always going to happen, and depending on the area that you're in, you want to ask people, again, the local people that work there, and the brokers and the real estate professionals, what's an average vacancy rate. They might not be able to tell you. I happen to know that upstate New York in Rochester in particular, is between 10 and 20%, and so I put 15%. And you definitely want to put a vacancy rate in, no matter if it's whatever, like if it's a ballpark guess and you just take 15%. Even if it doesn't happen, you have to factor in the possibility that there will be no rents, and so that's going to be part of your expenses. So here is 15% of $1,500. So that's your monthly income. 15% of that is $250. It's a little bit under, but I raised it because I'm on the conservative side. And then your property management fee. So you have a property manager who goes and lets people in, all that good stuff, and takes care of any problems, is 10% of everything that you get from there, but it's minus the vacancy rate. So it's 10% of $1,500 minus $250, so that's about $150. So the next thing is your repair reserve, and your repair reserve is just something you want to keep as a savings because of things like roofs that go bad after 30 years, or any major issues that aren't the tenant's fault, and just something to have in your account. So you'll have like about $1,000 every year building up. So you have that. And then you have a maintenance fee, or maintenance reserve as well, because things can go wrong, appliances, plumbing, anything like that needs fixing at the time, immediately. You want to have a reserve for that as well. So just putting that away every month is really important. And then you have utilities, and actually you want to see, when you have several units of multi-unit properties, what if the individual property units are metered separately. That's what you're going for. So you'd want to have each unit, each apartment, have its own meter of electricity, so that they can pay their own amount, and that's included, and that's in addition to their own rent. But here, and this is great for Rochester, they talk about the expenses included. So this is for the landlord. The landlord would pay insurance and water and sewer. We've already talked about insurance and water and sewer. So for 3 to 4 units, for whatever reason, I just round up to $100 just to be, again, on the conservative side. And hopefully all the other utilities you'll have metered individually so that their tenants can pay for it. So together with all of those expenses is $700. And then so you just want to take the total income, and then you minus the PITI and the total expenses, and you come out with the net income. Now, you're probably thinking $400 is not a lot of money. It's probably not going to pay for your rent or anything else. But it is kind of a lot of money to have every single month, again, for the rest of your life. And you've invested this money, and it gives it money back to you. And the amazing thing about this amount, compared with your $10,500 investment, is what's known as a cap rate. And the cap rate is something that's used in an investment to find out it's kind of like the return on your investment in anything else, like the percentage of the money that that's working for you. It's kind of another way of saying it. So the way that you calculate a cap rate is your net income, so $1,500 minus all your costs. Minus your investment cost. Right, your total cost is here. That's not right. That should be divided by. And then you times it by 100, and you get the percentage. So for Saratoga, you actually get 46% cap rate, which is pretty much unheard of. In most countries or cities, you get about a 9% cap rate is actually really good. And for like a duplex, for example, and this is just, this is amazing. And this particular one in Saratoga, on the Saratoga Road. So there's an example of how you can go to a website and find properties that have 3 to 4 units and see if what you're going to invest in is actually going to get the money back to you. Now, there's a lot of other little tricks that go on with this, such as having good credit and knowing where to look for your mortgage, and how to deal with your property managers. And I'll talk about that more in the next video slide. I'm not actually decided yet if I'm going to do a video or an audio, or just write something up for you guys. No, I think I'll do one or the other. I do like teaching this stuff. So if you have any questions about any of this, and if you didn't get a copy of the form that looks like this with all of this information that you can do your own calculations, you can go to different websites and different MLSs and see if there's any units that you can invest in and get a great rate of return and get money for the rest of your life. I mean, if you did this for 5 years, you'd have $2,000 in passive income if you bought this house today, and it's for sale right now as of 8/16/2013. You could buy this house right now, put a small down payment, and get a 46% rate of return and get $400 in your bank account every single month. And that's, of course, all guessing that there's no other expenses that are needed, and that's absolutely necessary to verify. You need some really great trust with your realtor, and you need to go see the property, which is another expense, but it's a lot of fun too. So I hope this has been helpful and showing you my little secrets about how to invest in real estate properties in order to get passive income. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to hear back from you. And otherwise, I will see you on the other side.